you were taught the sky is a dome over your head. The Book of Enoch describes it as a wall of counted gates at the edge of the world, and it says the living who reach them do not simply walk back. Most people, when they picture the sky, picture a lid, a curved ceiling, something arched and closed over the earth. Enoch does not describe a ceiling. He describes a boundary you can walk to, with doors set into it, standing at the far rim of the world where the ground ends. In chapter 33, he goes there. The text records that Enoch is carried past the ends of the earth, out to the east, to the far gates of the sky. And there he sees the openings through which the stars come out. He watches the stars go out through those gates, and he watches them come back in through them. And then he does something a man describing a dream does not usually do. He counts them. He records their number. He notes how each one opens. Read that again. Not as poetry, as a floor plan with doors. That is the thing that stops you, once you actually sit with the words. This is not a man gazing up and reaching for a metaphor about the heavens. This is a man reporting a place, a location at the edge of the living world, with a layout, an eastern wall, gates in it, stars passing through them on a schedule, and the whole thing measured and numbered like a surveyor walking a property line. And here is what the plain reading gives you, before anyone interprets a single word. Enoch stands at the boundary of where the living belong. He is shown the doorway. And the text is careful, over and over, to treat that rim as an edge, a threshold, not a wall you lean against, but an opening things pass through. Now, before you decide this is just an old strange story, you should know what this book actually is. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, at Qumran, in the caves above the shore, 11 separate copies of the Book of Enoch surfaced. 11. More than Deuteronomy. More than most of the books that stayed inside the Bible you know. This is not a fringe text. It is a text that was left out. And it was not left out because it vanished. It survived. It was preserved in Ge'ez, the old sacred language of Ethiopia, kept at Aksum in the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, where to this day it is not a curiosity or an appendix. It is scripture, held, copied, and read as canon by a church that never let it go. For most of the West, it stayed lost for over 1,000 years. Then, in 1773, a Scottish traveler named James Bruce carried 3 copies back to Europe out of Ethiopia. That is how the book returned. Everyone who wanted it gone had a long time to lose it. It was written down, hidden in the desert, guarded in the highlands, and it came back anyway. So when this book gives you directions to the edge of the sky, it is worth reading them slowly. And chapter 33 is not the only place it walks you there. 2 chapters earlier, in chapters 17 and 18, Enoch is carried further than that. The text takes him to the ends of the earth. It brings him to a mountain whose summit reaches into heaven itself. It shows him the great rivers and the place of the luminaries where the lights of the sky are kept. It brings him to what the text calls the cornerstone of the earth, the foundation stone the whole world is set on. And it shows him the 4 winds, the winds that hold up the sky and bear the frame of the heavens on their backs. Stop and notice what keeps happening. Every time Enoch reaches the boundary, the book does the same thing. It names the parts. It counts them. It gives them positions, east, ends, foundation, 4 corners. A doorway here, a gate there, a wall at the rim with openings in it. One image keeps returning through all of it. An edge, described as a doorway, not a barrier you stop at, an opening you go through. And here is the part that should sit with you. Enoch's account is not alone. Another part of this very same book maps the exact paths the sun and the stars take through those gates, where each one enters, where each one leaves in order. And that section did not travel with the rest. It was preserved separately, on its own, among the scrolls at Qumran. That is the calendar text. And it says the same thing from a completely different angle. That calendar text has a name. The Astronomical Book, chapters 72 through 82. And it does not speak in riddles. It traces the sun rising and setting through named gates, one after another, month by month, the way you would describe a machine you had watched run for years. Read it and you notice something. The sky is not open space. The sun comes up through a gate, crosses, and goes down through another. The winds have gates too, counted and set in order. The stars leave through their doors and come back through them. This is not a poem about the heavens. It is a working record of an edge full of openings, kept so precisely that someone at Qumran copied it out on its own and stored it apart from the rest. Think about that for a second. A community in the desert had the whole book, and they made a separate copy of just the part that maps the gates, as if that section mattered enough to preserve by itself. So the edge is machinery with doors. Now watch how the other texts treat the man who walked there. Genesis chapter 5 gives you the genealogy from Adam down to Noah. Long life after long life, and every one of them ends the same way. And he died, and he died, and he died, until you reach Enoch. And the line breaks. The verse reads, Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. No death, no grave. He was here, and then he was taken. Out of the whole record, he is the one figure the text says went beyond while still alive. And the Book of Jubilees, another ancient text kept in that same Ethiopian tradition, tells you what he did when he got there. It names Enoch as the one who saw the whole record and wrote it down. The witness. The man who went where the others did not go and came back with the map. So now hold all three next to each other. A calendar text that counts the gates. A genealogy that says one man was taken beyond alive. A second book that calls that man the witness who wrote it all. Three separate texts, three different angles, and they are all circling the same doorway. And here is where the word itself turns. The Ge'ez, the ancient Ethiopian language the book was preserved in, has a specific term for these boundary gates. When translators went looking at the root, they did not find the word for a barrier. They found the word for a threshold, an opening, a thing you pass through. The word in the Ge'ez is not the word for a wall. It is the word for a threshold. And a threshold is made to be crossed. Sit with that. A wall stops you. A threshold invites you. The book could have described the rim of the world as a solid boundary, sealed, final. It did not. It described it as a set of doors. And a door only means one thing. Something goes through it. Now I want to be careful here, because this next step is mine, not the book's. The text says threshold. It says opening. It does not spell out the consequence, but follow the logic. An opening implies a crossing, and a crossing, in the ordinary way of things, implies a return. You go through a door, and you come back through it. That is what doors are for. Except the book grants that return to almost no one. Every living soul it tracks goes one direction through the gates at the edge. The map is full of doorways, and only one man in the entire record is carried back out. And only because he was taken, not because he crossed on his own. Now, the honest position. Most scholars who study this book read chapters 17 through 36, the whole journey to the ends of the earth, as visionary geography, Symbolic cosmology. A dream map, not a place. And there are good reasons for that reading. Enoch is carried in a vision. The imagery is strange. Nobody has ever stood at a gate where a star goes out. Take the symbolic reading seriously. It is held by serious people. But it still has to explain why the text stops to count the gates. A symbol does not need a number. A dream does not give you compass directions. A vision of the edge of the world does not need to measure the distance between one gate and the next. And this text does all three. It counts. It points. It measures. That is not how you write a metaphor. That is how you write a survey. So we have the doorway now, described from every side. The calendar counts it. The genealogy walks a man through it. The root word calls it a threshold. What we do not have yet, what the book has held back this whole time, is the far side. Who is standing there? There is one chapter where Enoch is finally shown exactly that. Chapter 19. Uriel takes him to the place where the spirits of the fallen stand, at the ends of everything. And what the text records there is the reason the edge reads as one way. Uriel takes him to the edge, and this time, Enoch does not just count the gates. He is shown who is behind them. The jazz of chapter 19 is spare, and the text records it like a man reporting what he saw with his own eyes. Uriel says to him, "Here stand the angels who mingled with women. Their spirits, taking many forms, defile mankind and lead them astray, into sacrificing to demons as to gods. Here they stand until the great day of judgment, until they are judged and made an end of. And the women whom they led astray become sirens." And then Enoch adds one line of his own, alone at the end. "I, Enoch, saw the ends of all things. And no man has seen what I have seen." Read that again. Not as a warning, as a location. Enoch is standing at the place where the ones who went astray and the ones they dragged with them are held. It sits at the ends of all things. It sits on the far side of the edge he had already walked to. And now, look back across everything the book laid out. The gates in the east where the stars come out, counted one by one. The mountain in chapters 17 and 18, whose summit reaches heaven. The great rivers, the cornerstone of the earth. The four winds that hold the sky in place. The paths and the openings of the luminaries in the calendar chapters 72 through 82. And now, chapter 19, the far side. 4 separate passages. And every single one of them describes the same thing. A doorway at the edge of the world. Not a wall. Not a dome pressed down over your head. An opening. Something you go through. Here is where I stop reading and start telling you what I think it means. The text never says, in plain words, that Enoch could not return from the edge. It never writes that sentence, but the structure writes it for you. Every spirit the book tracks, the fallen angels, the deceived, the souls of the dead in chapter 22, moves one direction through the gates at the rim, in, toward the place where things are held until the day of judgment. The book never shows one of them walking back out. The text does not make this connection. The structure does. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So why is Enoch there at all? Why does he get to stand at the ends of all things and then come home to write it down? Genesis answers that in one of the strangest verses in the whole Hebrew Bible. Chapter 5. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. He did not go. He was taken. He is the only figure in the record carried beyond alive and carried back, and the reason he comes back is not that he found a way across. He did not cross. He was carried, both directions, by the one who took him. That is the answer the title asked for. That is why no one returns from beyond the edge. The living are not granted the crossing. The gates open one way for them. Enoch is the exception that proves the rule, because Enoch never made the crossing on his own strength. He was lifted over and set back down, a witness on loan, and even he says, "No man has seen what I have seen." Not no man will. No man has. He knows he is alone on that side of the sentence. So here is the reading, and I want to be honest that it is a reading. The Book of Enoch describes the rim of the sky as a threshold. That is the gaze underneath it, an opening that is passed through, not a barrier that stops you. And a threshold, by its nature, faces one way for the ones who belong to the earth. The book was written as a map of a doorway that the living do not walk back out of. Gates in chapter 33. Winds in 17. The far side in 19. The same edge described 4 times, always as a door. And think about what it means that this map survived at all. This is the book everyone tried to lose, left out of nearly every canon. And yet it was kept, copied by hand in Ge'ez in the treasuries at Aksum, read as scripture in the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition when the rest of the world had forgotten it existed. It was sealed in jars in the caves at Qumran and pulled back into the light 2,000 years later. It came back to Europe with James Bruce in 1773, when everyone assumed it was gone for good. The book survived the exact way the edges described. It was passed through, not erased. It went into the dark, and it came back out the other side, and here it is, being read out loud again. Tell me which passage carries the most weight for you, chapter 33 or chapter 19. I read them the same way, out loud, with the verse numbers. And the next reading follows Uriel further in, to chapter 22, and the 4 hollow places where the book says the dead are kept until the judgment. That one has a floor plan too.